Ferrari wanted to give its all in the 10th round of the 2025 Formula One Championship, the Canadian Grand Prix. It did what it could. In the end, we are talking about a 5th and 6th place finish that satisfies no one. Decent strategy and excellent driving from the drivers, but the speed was not enough to fight at the front. Moreover, Lewis Hamilton suffered floor damage that slowed him down. Let's take a detailed look at how events unfolded for the two Ferrari drivers at Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in Montreal. Everything is set for the start. The cars take their respective spots on the grid awaiting the formation lap. The most relevant environmental factor is the increase in track temperature, which registers about 15 degrees higher than on Friday. A variable is bound to directly influence tire management, making all tire strategies, well, just a bit less predictable. The Maranello team opted for a split strategy hard tires for Charles Leclerc and medium compound for Lewis Hamilton. This choice reflects a tactical approach aimed at maximizing the duration of the first stint for car number 16, who was penalized by a poor starting position. The start is contact-free, with the red cars maintaining their positions at the end of the first lap. From the second lap, the Ferrari pit wall informs Charles Leclerc of the need to use lift and coast in turn 5, in order to keep brake temperatures under control. Simultaneously, exiting hairpin turn 10, the Monegasque uses short shifting to promote smoother traction. Onboard footage shows car number 44 behaving more responsively through the chicanes. Lewis Hamilton, for his part, receives instructions from Riccardo Adami concerning brake temperature management, as well as specific guidelines about differential behavior at mid-corner. On lap 7, Charles Leclerc checks in with the team about the tire situation. Bryan Bozzi replies reassuringly, noting correct tire management. At this stage, car number 16 manages to slightly widen the gap to Lando Norris, who is lapping a couple of tenths faster. Lewis Hamilton's lap times are broadly in line with those of the cars ahead. The race context remains stagnant, with most drivers focused on analyzing tire behavior. Within this framework, Charles Leclerc uses team radio to express a critical view of the hard tires, calling them uncompetitive. By contrast, the feedback of the 7-time Formula One world champion remains positive, confirmed by Riccardo Adami, who reiterates that strategy plan A is still in effect. Bryan Bozzi also engages in intense radio communication, relaying various parameters related to differential settings. The C4 Pirellis struggle to reach the proper operating window even after 12 laps, generating some frustration in the Monegasque driver. Meanwhile, Lando Norris completed a pass on Fernando Alonso 2 laps earlier, and shortly after, Charles Leclerc gains position on the long straight before the final chicane. At this point, the hard tires finally begin to deliver better performance. The next lap marks Lewis Hamilton's first pit stop. The Briton returns to the pits, where the team fits a new set of white-banded tires. Once back on track, he finds himself in 10th place, behind Ocon's Haas. At the same time, Charles Leclerc climbs to second, thanks to a delayed stop. The SF-25 number 16 shows competitive pace, on par only with George Russell. Bryan Bozzi praises the race pace, calling it excellent. The technical wall uses the opportunity to request an update on tire usage to optimize management. Lewis Hamilton also continues to receive positive feedback. His progress through the field is steady, and at the end of his first post-pit stint, he finds himself in 7th place, just behind Oscar Piastri's McLaren. On lap 25, radio chatter from car number 16 references strategy plan C. Simultaneously, George Russell gradually closes in on Charles Leclerc. The British Ferrari driver comments on the level of downforce, describing it as satisfactory but still not quite up to his expectations. After a few laps, George Russell completes the overtake on the Monegasque driver, whose tire degradation becomes visibly apparent. Nonetheless, Charles Leclerc's race pace remains competitive, especially considering he has already completed 27 laps on the same set. The validity of his performance is confirmed when the pit wall decides to extend his stint by one more lap, while Max Verstappen gradually closes the gap and enters DRS range. A few minutes later, the second pit stop is made. The team once again opts for hard tires. This choice locks Charles Leclerc into a 3-stop race strategy, making it necessary to use a different compound to meet regulations. Upon rejoining the track, the Ferrari driver is in 6th, just behind Lando Norris, who has meanwhile switched to the medium compound. Lewis Hamilton's progress is currently limited. After completing his own pit stop, the Briton is behind his Maranello teammate, trailing by about 5 seconds. Charles Leclerc is given a target lap time, 1:15.3. The response is immediate, with a series of laps matching the indicated pace, without any visible difficulty in management. The race has reached its midpoint, and the situation remains wide open for both SF-25 cars. From the radio of car number 44 comes an interesting message. Riccardo Adami praises Lewis Hamilton's pace, emphasizing its effectiveness especially in light of some detected damage. The exact nature of the issue affecting the former Mercedes driver remains to be clarified. The most likely hypothesis is a loss of aerodynamic load, previously mentioned, possibly due to contact with a curb that compromised the floor's integrity. The reason for the damage was only revealed after the race, as the Ferrari told Sky Sports F1 in the media pen. He explained that he had a big collision with a groundhog on either lap 8 or lap 9, which had damaged the entire front part of the car's floor. Lap time data supports the theory. The gap to Charles Leclerc increases steadily, though not abruptly. A disappointing development, considering Lewis Hamilton's potential performance. At the end of lap 40, both Ferrari drivers enter a tire management phase. Car 44 continues to struggle with lap times, with turns 2 and 10 being the main trouble spots in terms of time loss. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc tries to stay hooked onto the pace set by the two McLarens. The goal is to balance speed with sustainable tire usage. At this point, the Monegasque is in third place, since both Russell and Verstappen have already completed their second stops. During this phase, Bozzi calls for the activation of a driver default command, an alphanumeric sequence designed to correct potential software issues via the steering wheel. The intervention does not appear to negatively affect performance. On lap 45, Adami once again calls Lewis Hamilton to the pits. The Briton, although slightly hesitant, accepts the call, asking for 2 additional clicks of front wing adjustment. The tire choice once again falls on the hard compound, intended to complete the race with no further stops. Rejoining in 7th, Lewis Hamilton asks the pit wall whether they've been able to assess the extent of the damage to his car. After the main contenders complete their second pit stops, Charles Leclerc temporarily leads the race. The plan is to extend the stint further, taking advantage of clean air. During this phase, a conversation between car number 16 and engineer Bryan Bozzi begins, aimed at maximizing the effectiveness of the remaining strategy. With 19 laps to go, Russell's car reappears in the Ferrari's mirrors. On lap 54, it's time for Charles Leclerc's final stop. The team fits a new set of medium tires in quick fashion, and the Monegasque rejoins in 6th. Bozzi, meanwhile, urges caution through turn 5, asking the driver not to overwork the tires in the early laps of the new stint. On the other side, Lewis Hamilton continues his stint in 7th, with solid pace but not enough to improve his position further. Despite the instructions from the pit wall, Charles Leclerc keeps pushing. A new target pace is communicated, 1:14.3. However, the pace of his direct rivals and a gap of around 12 seconds to Lando Norris make a successful recovery unlikely. The top 5 drivers are within just 6 seconds, but car number 16 can't insert itself into the fight. At the end of the event, the strategic analysis highlights an error-free race from Ferrari's pit wall. The team managed the race with order, making the best use of available variables. The overall result leaves some regrets, especially for Lewis Hamilton, who could have aimed higher without the floor damage. With 3 laps remaining, the safety car is deployed. The cause is a reckless maneuver by Lando Norris, who attempted an overtake in an area with no space, ending up hitting his teammate's car. The race ends under double yellow flags, without further significant changes in the standings. A chaotic conclusion that, at the very least, allows Ferrari to pick up a few extra points, which are helpful for the championship, though far from any real ambitions. The final tally sees Charles Leclerc recover 2 positions from his grid start, a result that cannot be called satisfying, but considering the lack of technical updates on the SF-25, it represents the best that could be achieved under the circumstances. Now all eyes turn to Austria, where a first update is expected, followed by a more substantial aerodynamic upgrade package in Britain,